Good morning, well, evening, afternoon. I guess depends on what time you're listening to it. It's all a bit of chaos here. I think Des was doing a count. This is our fourth recording this week alone. I tell you what, if I had a full-time job, I sure as hell don't know about it. Good morning, Andy. I now know what you feel like, mate. I don't seem to be working for a living. I just seem to be singing and dancing. How are you this morning, Andy?
Very well. I had good night's sleep last night. Very well rested because, yesterday was quite a busy day travel-wise. Having to head down to Morrinsville, then drive all the way up to the shore, and then drive all the way back to Pukekohe. So, yeah, I'm feeling pretty exhausted. So I've given myself the day off today.
Listen, I'm sorry. You're taking the mickey now, right? Look at you all merged up. Do you want to just stand up a little bit so people can see? Andy is all merged up. That is insane. Des, mate, how are you feeling after 2 days at the National Health and Safety Show?
I was exhausted. I collapsed in a heap last night. I was just absolutely spent. It was such a busy couple of days. High energy, really good though.
Yeah, awesome. And a big warm welcome, although he doesn't look very warm down the line. A big warm welcome to Greg Dearsly. Greg, how are you this morning?
Yeah, awesome, Brenton. I'm a bit shattered myself actually after a late night last night, watching the mighty New South Wales Blues spank the Queenslanders in a record-breaking first half, I might add. 34-0. Who'd have thought it?
Wow. Now, Greg, I got to be honest, I do dabble a little bit in the old sports TV. So if I got it correct, is that New South Wales 1, Queensland 1?
It is. So,
wow.
So heading to Suncorp Stadium in a couple of weeks for the grand finale. New South Wales apparently going favourites.
Wow.
So we'll see what happens.
Wasn't it a bit of a spanking last week, the other way around though?
Yeah, look, to be fair, it was, and actually, I have experienced Suncorp Stadium probably dressed up in this garb a few years ago, and I think the final score might have been 48-0 to Queensland. So it was a sort of a quick ditch of the costume and get out of Dodge quite quickly.
Well, now, Greg, for those listeners, I mean, a few of our listeners, I'd imagine, know exactly who you are. But for those that maybe don't know, because we are, I know this is hard to believe, we're pulling a bit of an international audience here, mate. So for those that maybe don't know, do you want to just give us a brief intro, who you are, what you do, and maybe why it's so cold where you are that your screen is frozen?
Righto. So, been in health and safety for 24 years, I believe. And that's sort of, I guess, my career started with the start of the ACC WSMP program,
Yes.
which, no longer exists. So I've outlasted that. And
I'm not sure, Greg. I'm not sure.
And so now and have been for about 13 years. I've been a consultant, first for safety, just working in many varied and differing industries. Spent a lot of time in the waste and recycling sector. Still sort of dabble in that area, working for councils and waste companies around the country. Do a lot of stuff around leadership and governance. And for the last sort of few years have been immersing myself in something called cultural intelligence.
Yeah, that's quite exciting, Greg.
Yeah, which is probably a chat for another day, but yeah, it's just trying to understand how we can better respond in what is today's globalized multicultural workplaces. So have spent some time in the industry, was the president of NZISM for a while, have been the president of InchPo and still on the board of InchPo. Which is really just part of giving back to the industry, I suppose.
Yeah, no, cool. No, really awesome too, Greg. I guess we'd call each other colleagues in this space, right? Because you've just recently started dabbling in the old podcast space yourself, is that not right?
Indeed, yes. So I've just completed what I've called Series 1, 15 episodes. Little did I know the amount of effort that has to go into to produce something and release it every week.
Mate, you're doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong. I'm telling you now.
So yeah, it's all around cultural intelligence, and it's called the Cultural Intelligence Safety Professional. And yeah, just going to spend the next couple of months sort of devising season 2 and identifying some guests, and so it's been an interesting sort of few months.
Oh no, it sure has, Greg. And I know when we spoke about it, and your want to dabble into the space, when you said you're committing to a weekly show, and I tell you what, I take my hat off to you. I don't think the three of us combined can do what you do in terms of getting yourself organised and getting into it. Now for the other two on the video cast here, Greg and I go way back. Actually, this is quite reminiscent for me. And Greg was my initial contact into the world of health and safety. So when I was looking at making a move and a change from something that I used to call work, which most would argue wasn't, a little bit like Andy, really. Greg was the first person I spoke to and got involved with in safety.
Sorry about that, safety world.
Apology accepted. Apology accepted, Greg.
Oh, Greg. And on that note, I was going to say, this isn't the first time you and I have been on a camera together either, is it? So, yeah, I'll leave that one for another day.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes. You had me scratching my head there a little bit, but that is true.
Greg and I go way back, and also lucky enough to be on the Inspo team together at the moment as well. So, Greg and I, it's great to have you on the show, Greg, and thanks for jumping in and whatnot. Now, one of the reasons this is a new thing for us. So this is the second time we're doing a bonus episode based off the previous week's show, and so we'll kind of move into that sort of space now, but. Last week we spun the wheel and it landed on the topic, are good intentions good enough? Now, we'll go back to Des for a little bit. I mean, Des, you've had a bit of time to reflect, think, take on board it. I mean, you were vehement, I think, is that a word even? You were adamant that they're not. And you're pretty scathing of some real life examples of where good intentions weren't good enough. And in fact, I had a few people bring that up at the National Safety Show over the last couple of days. Have you had time to sort of mellow on the idea that maybe I was right and sometimes good intentions are good enough?
Yes, I've reflected on it, and it's probably just reaffirmed my view that they're definitely not enough. And I'm glad it's raising discussion, because I think people should be extra critical of things that keep coming out. As you know, in the safety space, to see if they're really worthwhile. I think there should be an extra level of criticism leveled at these things.
Oh yeah, well, awesome. Sometimes they say good things take time. Clearly, you need a bit more. Andy, yourself, mate. I mean, have you had time to sort of reflect and digest the conversation from last week, and what are your current thoughts on are good intentions good enough?
There's been some interesting conversation between me and you over the last few days, sort of around this subject, and it's come up in quite a jokey way at times. When perhaps something hasn't quite gone as well, and I suggested that my intention was correct, mainly to do with the pricing of some merch.
One job, mate. One job.
See, my intention was right, but clearly it was just not good enough. So I think if anything, throughout that whole challenging few moments of tension between us, all that you did was affirm that I was right and you were wrong.
Oh wow. Okay, well, see what I'm going to put up with, Greg. This is
challenging. It's challenging.
It is challenging. Now, so Greg, I mean, you chimed in on the show last week. You jumped in. I mean, what are your thoughts around the concept around are good intentions good enough? I'd love to get your thoughts on where you think this goes.
So, I think Des might have referred to this in the episode last week, where he quoted, I think this is correct. He quoted that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Oh, that was you, Andy. Oh, good on you. Yeah. And I think
most of the intellectual stuff does come from me.
Hey, I just found that quite on LinkedIn. And I think that that reference to hell, got some backs up, and so I just I wonder if it's better that we say the road to unintended places is paved with good intentions.
Oh, Greg, I'm glad we've got you on the show. I am glad you finally brought something to it.
Is that an example of you demonstrating cultural intelligence?
Maybe it is.
I think it is.
So I think I made a comment on the show last week about a particularly tragic event that happened. I think we just had like the 20th anniversary of it a couple of years ago. So it was a confined space scenario down in downtown Auckland, where some people were working underground, and one bloke went down. The atmosphere wasn't conducive to humans being down there, and unfortunately he passed out, and his mates went in after him, which was obviously a good intention, but it didn't end at all well for anybody involved. So I suppose I'm siding with Andy and Des on that, and saying good intentions can lead to some pretty horrible places. So yeah, that was, I guess, my initial thoughts. I have got a couple of other scenarios that I've come up with. And without wanting to bring politics into this, I wonder if we think and for a moment give the current government the benefit of the doubt that they have good intentions about improving workplace safety, but is what they're doing really good enough?
Mate, listen, I say let's bring politics into it. We've got we set the bar really low on this show, Greg. So no need to hold back, I tell you. And that's a great idea. I mean, and I think because obviously the initial example that you've brought up, very very task orientated, right? Very specific, and as you've pointed out, very clearly the intention of those going in to rescue their mate were good. With really bad consequences for everyone involved, unfortunately. And I guess the next example that you've brought up, which is why we needed somebody like you on the show to actually bring some kind of depth and breadth to what we talk about, the politics side of it, right? So I guess for those that don't quite know what's going on in New Zealand at the moment, we've got a new national-led government. I get confused. Is that the right side or the left? That's the right side, isn't it? And they've decided that there's too many road cones, I think was some of the quotes being used, and they're now going to go out.
Yep.
They're going to go out and they're going to review the health and safety legislation, the health and safety just general, and health and safety. Sorry, I'm getting multiple things coming up here. I don't do good with multitasking. So yeah, I guess that's a good question. I mean, Des, what are your thoughts? The fact that the current government wants to review is the intention good enough that they want to review? Maybe we could argue execution so far doesn't sound like it's going very well. But I mean, what are your thoughts initially, Des, around the intent of what they're trying to do? Is it good enough?
Well, it's hard to argue against a review being a bad idea, because it might just reaffirm that everything's fine, and I don't see a problem with that. So a review that much of a big deal. And yeah, it just there might be no change come of this at all. So I don't see it being potentially that bad. It's the badness will come from whatever changes are proposed, if any. And I don't know. Yeah, a review is kind of a harmless thing, and I think it's been deliberately labelled as a review for that reason. It's really uncontroversial, I think.
Andy, your thoughts? I mean, you've always got an opinion on the government. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think like Greg was perhaps very generous there in terms of the intentions of the government. I'm perhaps a little bit more cynical, and that I think that the motivation for most politicians is to get re-elected, and they often pass off good intentions to try and mask that. So I'm a little bit cynical, and to me it all sounds very much like politics. When you start talking about road cones, it takes me back to the UK in the 1990s. John Major was about to lose an election, and he came up. He started preaching about there's too many traffic cones, and the solution was the traffic cone hotline, and that won him an election.
Did it really?
Yeah,
really?
It did. Seriously.
But let's be fair though. What does that say about the people?
Hey! I left shortly after that.
Oh, fair enough. Sorry, I've got multiple things going on here. This is chaos. That's why the last couple of days. But I mean, really, a road cone hotline wins an election. I mean, that's, to me, I'm sorry, but that says more about...
it wasn't just that, but it was a great example of someone jumping on the bandwagon of politics and populism.
But listen, I got to be fair. We had a regular listener of the show. He turned up at the booth yesterday while we're at the National Safety Show, and one of the topics that is going to end up on the wheel are the, I can't remember the exact words. I've got to go grab it from somewhere, but are the number of road cones in New Zealand actually diminishing the value of PPE? And that's a valid point, right? I mean, so why not use that as the motivator? Because are they making people unsafe? I don't know. Yeah, fascinating. I mean, Greg, any other great examples? I mean, you said you had a couple. I mean, you've obviously brought up the politics. I mean, what's another one that you think?
Yeah, so maybe just drag it away from the controversy of the political landscape at the moment and bring it back to an organisational level, and the number of organisations that state that their people are their most important asset. Good intention, but then you walk out into the yard where there's a forklift operating, and it seems like all of the potholes on New Zealand's roads have now transferred themselves into the organisation's yard. And you go, well, if your employees are your biggest asset, then, what's with the potholes?
Well, it's because their employees are the biggest asset, not their yard. I mean, isn't that logical? I mean, come on, Greg.
But you're asking me to drive a forklift on this yard now through,
Oh, mate, I think you're grabbing at straws here. You're starting to sound a bit like Des and Andy. I had so much more respect for you before we got you on the show. This is crazy. I mean, but so I'm going to put it out there. Is that really a good intention? That's not good enough, or is that just a blatant lie? When they say that their people are their biggest asset?
Well, I think there's an intent there to prove and promote their apparent care for their workforce.
Greg, you're very well articulated there.
I think you worded that beautifully, Greg.
Oh, Andy, your insight. What are you thinking? Do you agree with Greg there, Andy?
Yeah, I think the intent there isn't to. The intent is to portray themselves as caring about the people, not to actually care about the people. And that's another. No, that's absolutely not good enough. And that's another thing that proves that you're wrong, Brenton.
Well, you see, I'm going to take it the other way, right? I'm going to flip this on its head, and if that's the intention, right, and that's what the statement is, but that gives people like you and me and other safety professionals, that gives us an in, right? That gives us a maybe the intentions aren't good enough, but it gives us an opportunity to get a foot in the door, right? If they turn and say, "Oh, we're going to do this," and it's with the greatest of intention, but it's in your mind you're saying it's not good enough. I see that as an opportunity. I see that as a way to get my foot in the door, and at least they're doing something as opposed to doing nothing. You know what I mean? And we can kind of work that. I mean, Des, what do you think?
I think we kind of touched on this subject. I think it was the topic was safety slogans, where we just said, you know, if it's not backed up with action, it doesn't carry much weight at all. But I want to take us back to politics, because I think there's an interesting
Hang on.
thing going on there. Got our little
go.
Individual.
Back to politics.
All right. So, I think a review of the act is called for, because, and one of the things is we've got too many traffic cones, or there was some comment in the media about having too many traffic cones, and I think that actually raises an interesting point about the application of reasonably practicable. And okay, we've got 10 traffic cones for this job. Well, is it reasonably practicable to have 11? Well, probably is. And then is it reasonably practicable to have 12? Well, it probably is. And then you just get into this reductionist argument of an infinite number of traffic cones. And it's hard to argue against that being reasonably practicable. And I see it, you know, one of the hottest topics we've got in the safety industry now is around safety bureaucracy and safety clutter, but it's really hard to argue against administrative controls being reasonably practicable, because they can be so easy to implement. So how can you argue against them being reasonably practicable? So I think maybe it's worth having a look at the legislation. Maybe it's not the right terminology.
So we're saying in this example that maybe good intentions are good enough. Greg, I've got to apologise again. The boys are coming hot off 2 days of Expo and, at the National Health and Safety Show. But any kind of thoughts on that, Greg?
Look, I think you're right, Des. There has been some comments in the media around traffic cones. I thought the interesting one was that New Zealand's health and safety culture was sort of being described as like the sea of traffic cones, and look, I'm not sure is the legislation really due for a review. I mean, some people are still calling it the new law. I mean, it's been around for 10 years, but still people call it the new legislation. The previous legislation was in for, you know, more than 10 years before it got reviewed. You know, is it just that a couple of disgruntled businesses have been spoken to and told that they don't understand what reasonably practicable means, and all of a sudden, you know, everything's getting thrown out?
Yeah, fantastic. Great insight there, Greg. And I'm just going to kind of bring us back to another thing that I kind of raised, because I just want to make this all about me, to be fair, at the moment. I feel like I'm being picked on a little bit. In last week's episode, I suggested that maybe good intentions were a springing board, right? And I kind of referred back to the example of the Wright brothers. I mean, if they had good intentions, right, and they happen to be good enough. But I guess my wonder is, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, Greg. My wonder is, if we do all things not start with good intentions, just some obviously play out and maybe some don't, and it's a game of odds, really. And if we kind of went with the attitude, oh well, good intentions aren't good enough, will we stifle innovation, I guess, is my question. So if we take the approach that good intentions aren't good enough, is there a risk that we're going to stifle innovation? I mean, I don't know whether innovation is a good thing. That's a whole other question. But what are your thoughts on that, Greg?
I wonder if, well, look, I think you might have covered this last time, but it's more than just the good intention, right? You've got to go out and do some planning, do some thinking, get your ducks in a row. I'm sure Rocket Lab didn't think we want to go to the moon, let's build a rocket and go there. There was a whole bunch of analysis and science that might have gone into it. just going back to your comment before about opportunities, maybe that's another thing for your spinning wheel of death is badly implemented good intentions an opportunity for safety consultants.
Oh, now you're talking. Get that on the wheel.
Well, between you and Andy, I'm sure only the two of you can answer that. Des and I actually have a real job. I don't want to go there with you, Greg, but you're dragging me down, buddy. You're dragging me down. There we go. I mean, Des, what are your thoughts? I mean, are you kind of on the same page that maybe if you throw enough good intentions at a wall, eventually one's going to stick?
Yeah, I suppose everything has to start with good intentions, doesn't it?
Does it?
It's hard to. It would be very difficult to say otherwise. But it just takes so much more than that. I don't think when something goes bad, it's not enough to say, oh well, our intentions were good. Well, that's not good enough.
That's right. But that's my day-to-day life. Every time I get home, how'd your day go? Oh, well, I tried hard. I don't know. Maybe sometimes it is good enough. Like set the bar low, and you're always going to exceed expectations. Is my theory on it. But I mean, Andy, your thoughts? I mean, throw enough darts at a dartboard, eventually you're going to hit it. Right? Is the hope?
Yeah, I get from that perspective, but I think there's various intentions, and the problem is when you've got conflicting intentions.
Oh, conflicting intentions.
That's the huge problem, is that what's best for you mightn't be best for me. So whose intention gets the priority?
So here's some cultural intelligence going to come in then. You're right, Andy. And so who's responsible for how that good intention is both communicated and then perceived by the audience, whoever that audience might be? Is it up to me as the person with good intentions to be really clear and for that multicultural, multi-generational, multi-whatever audience? Or do I just go out and say, we're going to do this, and I think it's a good idea, and just leaving it up to the people we're communicating with to work out whether that's good, bad, or ugly?
I mean, Greg, it sounds like you're describing the show, to be fair. That's how we started. We had a good intention. We're still trying to work out whether it's good enough. And I guess effectively we're leaving it up to the audience to decide whether it's good enough, aren't we? So, wow, that's brilliant. So can we? That's a great.
I like that, Greg. That's there's a lot of. Oh, that's made me think. It's never happened on this show before.
That's not a nice way to talk about Des. I mean, Des is incredibly thoughtful and comes out with some cracker one-liners they're only one or two lines, but he comes out with some crackers from time to time. It's not about the quantity with Des, it's about the quality. But no, listen, I think that's fantastic. I think we can all agree. Well, I don't know. Can we all agree? This will be an interesting thing. Could we wrap up this bonus episode with hopefully an agreement that maybe good intentions have a place, just not everywhere? Would we agree to something like that? Maybe
good intentions are a starting point, but it's only part of the story.
Yeah, cool. No, I like it. Des, what are your thoughts, mate? Oh, great. Love it. I didn't mute you, Des. I didn't mute you.
That was me. I said what I was trying to say is that it's a starting point, but it's also not a defense when things go bad. Yeah,
cool. Andy?
Yeah, I'd broadly agree with my two colleagues there.
Broadly agree. Fantastic. Well, I think that we've thrashed this one to death a little bit, and we can all agree that while good intentions have a place, that they definitely have a place. It's just making sure that we use it, that it's in the right place, and it might be the catalyst for something, but it's definitely got to be backed up with some forethought, some data, and some planning in order to execute it effectively. So Well, hey, Greg, listen, again, thank you so much for joining us from the middle of wherever you are, in whatever garb you're in there. That's amazing. Thank goodness this is not live, because that would have been inside of a whole bunch of us. But hey, listen, people, this will be going live, or not live, but this will be going on air onto Spotify. People can still watch the video, so if you're listening to us on Spotify now, you can actually still watch the video, which is pretty cool. So yeah, Greg, just a massive thank you. Looking forward to season 2 of your podcast, and I'm hoping it's all going to go well. So yeah, big thank you to you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, no, it's been a blast, and it seems to be. I think your good intentions are proving well founded out in the market there with what you're doing.
Awesome. No, thanks for the feedback, Greg. Appreciate the follow, and really value the jumping into the comments during the live show, which is fantastic. Andy, Des, I'm about to block your number for a couple of days. I don't want to hear from you for a little while. So this has been real. What a week it has been, boys. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Greg and Brent. Yeah, please leave me alone, Brent. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg.
And listen, for those of you, hope you've all, this will be dropping. This is a Monday that you'll be listening to this, and I hope you all had a great long weekend with Matariki, and enjoying yourselves out there and making the most of hopefully the downward slope to summer here in Aotearoa. So yeah, massive thank you to everybody. Take care, and yeah, we'll see you next time.